Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Sign up for GoToMeeting using promo code TWiST to begin your free trial. And by SnapTerms, online legal protection made simple. Visit SnapTerms and enter the code TWiST to receive a free NDA with every order.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups, and today on the program, Don Charlton is with us. He is the founder of The Resumator, a product I've been using for 3 or 4 years, and he called into episode 5 of This Week in Startups with questions on how to grow his company, and boy, has it grown in the last 3 or 4 years, and we're going to hear all about it. An amazing company, The Resumator, that is crushing it. Stick with us. It's going to be a great episode.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups, the program where we talk about startup companies. Pretty obvious, I guess. And we've been doing this program now for 4 years. Kevin Pollak and I have Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. We both started, 4 years ago, doing podcasts, and hundreds of episodes in each. And I really enjoy doing the show. The show is about creating products and services that people love, that move the human race forward, that put a dent in the universe, things that make life easier, better, more enjoyable, fun, more profitable, more efficient. Just, that's what we try to focus on here. And by the way, 8 or 9 out of 10 startup companies fail. Nobody has the exact statistic, but we know it's the majority case. So anybody who's an entrepreneur or founder has my respect, and they should have yours, because these maniacs, these gladiators, these samurais go into an arena knowing the likelihood case is they fail. And that is, I think, what's fascinating and, just what I love about entrepreneurship, what I love about startup companies, what I love about founders, is they go into a situation like Black Hawk Down, where they drop in those snipers, and those snipers know. You know that, Don.
Yes.
You know the scene. Those snipers know, and the commander says, you know what you're asking for in that famous scene, and they drop the snipers down in to protect the Black Hawk that went down in Mogadishu, and they protect as best they can their fallen comrades. That is entrepreneurship. That is startups. It's like the scene from Black Hawk Down, or the scene from Gladiator, where there's insurmountable odds. And today on the program, Don Charlton will be with us, and he's the founder and CEO of The Resumator. You can go check out theresumator.com if you're one of those people who likes to listen to the show in the background while they type in URLs as they talk about stuff, which is, kind of a good strategy, I think. Don't do that if you're on the road with your Tesla Model S with a big 20-inch iPad in the middle screen. Not that I would ever do that, but boy, is it tempting. God. A couple of house cleaning notes. The launch festival is March 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's at the San Francisco Design Center. And boy, this is going to be a whopper. It's the 6th year we're doing it, and you can go to launch.co and just click on the festival icon that's there. Launch.co, not .com, .co, because it's a company. We're creating our own opportunity there. Launch.co, and you'll see all the information. Just click on the festival icon. We're also having a hackathon. You can go to launchhackathon.com. The hackathon occurs March 2nd and 3rd, the weekend before. The launch festival starts on Monday, and we've got over 3,300 attendees, 162 people in the demo pit, companies that is, and 51 companies debuting on stage. It is going to be a juggernaut, and I'm really happy. And we're in the black, which is always great, because, God, losing money building one of these startup conferences is kind of scary, and the budgets are almost upwards of $1 million now for this event, and this, probably a dozen people working on it, up until the event, and 5 or 6 people working on it all year long. So a lot goes into the Launch Festival, and I would love you to be my guest at the event. Go to launch.co. If you're a broke founder or a builder, just click on the builder ticket. We give a bunch of scholarships away. That's how we are trying to get to this 5,000 person stretch goal. We thought, hey, could anybody ever have an event that had 5,000 people go to it in the technology industry? We're not sure. but we're at 3,300 plus attendees already. We might get there. We're certainly going to go blow past 4,000, I believe, with 2 weeks left. So anyway, the launch festival is going to be amazing. I hope you come as my guest. If you're a broke founder or a creator, developer, et cetera, you can come for free on a scholarship. Just click and apply. If you are a lawyer, banker, et cetera, you're going to want to just pay for a ticket. They're only $400 or $1,000 for the VIP experience, which you could easily afford. And I think that's like 1/3 of the price of TechCrunch Disrupt and 1/6 of the price of the Wall Street Journal D conference and 1/9 or 10th of the price of the TED conference. And I think you get as much value or more. Certainly in some cases more. Okay, listen, I love GoToMeeting. I use it every day. I was on a GoToMeeting with one of the companies I'm on the board of, Dine DNS. You probably know that company out in New Hampshire for routing DNS and sending email. Anyway, the point is, I was on a GoToMeeting, one click, instantly on the meeting. 5 or 6 other people, one click, instantly on the meeting. The meeting started on time. Well, actually, it started about 4 minutes late because one person was late. But there were no technical difficulties. And let me tell you something, that is not the norm. Every time somebody tries to have me use one of these free services or, fly-by-night services, you think it's going to work well. And then you have the third person get on the call and it doesn't work. Or you try to do screen sharing and it doesn't work. Or you try to change the presenter and, oh, they don't have that feature. Or you try to do HD video. Oh, they don't have that feature. Or, oh, they have that feature, but it crashes the product. Or, oh, they have the wrong version they've downloaded, all of this nonsense. But with GoToMeeting, meeting is believing, it just works. And that's all these folks do. That's all they work on is making the product excellent and stable. Visit GoToMeeting.com. Go ahead and visit GoToMeeting.com and click the Try It Free button. Use the promo code TWIST. Please use that promo code TWIST. I know you don't need a discount or anything, but it lets them know that you did hear about it on the show, and use the promo code TWIST. Thank you so much. You get a free 30-day trial, by the way. No credit card required. GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. On the program today, as I teased earlier, Don Charlton, who is from Philly.
Incorrect.
What? Pittsburgh. Sorry. Why did I say Philly?
Common mistake.
Yeah, as a New Yorker, you're just like, yeah, whatever that area with the P is down the block. Mm-hmm. But you're from Pittsburgh, of all places. And you called into the program.
Episode 5.
Episode 5.
Yes.
And on episode 5 was?
David Sachs.
Who had just won. Was he Teddy won TechCrunch 50 or was he doing Genie?
No. It was
Yammer.
Genie. It was Yammer, yeah.
It was Yammer. So that was 2000. God, what year was that? 2009, I guess. Yeah, was the second year of the conference. And you called in with what question?
I was asking, so at the time I was thinking of our product as being, kind of this utilitarian software product. And I was saying, how do we market a product that's not necessarily sexy? It's not social media. It's not, the things that were kind of hot 4 years ago.
Not consumer internet.
Exactly, yeah.
And did I give you any kind of decent advice? Well, you know what? Go ahead and link to the annotation right here. So, Brandis, I'm going to point my finger, and I'll say, click right here on this monkey. And if you click on this monkey, we'll deep link on this monkey on YouTube to the moment that Don called into episode 5. So you know how to do that. Just do an annotation right there. Okay.
Well, I think a couple things that you did, or a piece of advice you gave were, one was we had to kind of build ourselves up as being a knowledge center for things around recruiting and hiring.
Ah, right.
And through our blog, we obviously did that. But a piece
and so that's being essentially, if you want people who are in the recruiting space to find out about you, just creating content around recruiting is a great idea.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Putting a little bit of honey on the website.
Yeah, I think another thing, and this was very hard for me to kind of get used to, was establishing myself as kind of a person in HR, so to speak, or rather around hiring and so forth. So
a guru, a speaker, a leader, an authority. Yeah,
whenever you're really small, you have to kind of use your entrepreneurial story to try to gain some momentum with.
But the fact was you weren't.
No, not yet at the time. No.
At the time, you were a neophyte.
Whatever that
recruiting.
means. Yeah, exactly.
You were new.
Yeah, new. Yeah.
So how did you fake it till you made it?
I like that. Fake it till you make it. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
No, I think I like to talk about our company had the facade of good design. One of the things you mentioned during that interview was we had a very nicely designed website. You kind of dinged us for our red button on the blue background, but that was working really well for us.
It was converting.
Yes, there you go. Right.
Right. I know my exact thing because red on blue is considered like one of the worst design things you can do because it vibrates and it hurts the eyes.
I'm offended.
However, you're saying yes, it may hurt your eyes, but it actually converts.
Yeah, it was working. Red converts a lot of different ways.
And you still have it.
Yes, I still have it.
All right.
We're doing a redesign.
That's a good example, I think, of like advice in one genre, design.
Yes.
Does not necessarily mean good advice in another milieu, like I don't use all those big words today. In another area, like conversion on landing pages.
Exactly.
LPO, landing page optimization. So keep continuing, yeah.
Yeah, so what you were saying was we used the facade of good design. Whenever I was on sales calls in 2009, and people thought we were a 30-person company because we had a nicely designed website. So that's how you fake it, right? You just, you get a good logo. I mean, a lot of Y Combinator companies have to start out that way, right? You have a nice brand and so forth. You try to.
And I always liked the name, The Resumator. It was like. So I thought, well, you put the at the top, it should be called Resumator, but the domain was obviously not available or something. But, it actually, I think it worked. And you haven't changed the design radically in the product.
No.
Because as a software as a service company, it's not a good idea to do that, or just haven't gotten around to it?
I'd say a little bit of both. I think that one of the failures of a lot of larger software as a service providers is they don't modify the product. And you think about Apple. Apple doesn't care. They're going to change it in the best interest of the user. And some of these software as a service providers, they don't really build the product in a way where whenever you have companies paying you a couple $1 million a year in a contract, you don't want to upset them by totally changing the user interface. We don't want to fall in that same trap. So I think it's just a matter of when we get the time, we'll try to find ways to slowly roll out.
Right.
Better.
I mean, listen,
features.
the interface on Craigslist doesn't change all that much, and they're doing pretty well.
But imagine if they had great design, though.
Yeah, I think it would confuse people and probably slow down the speed at which people get through the site, which is, I think, what they're optimizing for. It's like getting in and getting out. But yeah, they clearly have had to make some concessions on like maps and pictures.
I had a great experience on Amazon.com on an airplane. I bought a book, and apparently it knew that I was on an airplane, so it stripped everything down to just raw text. Times New Roman.
Wow.
The full Amazon experience, and I bought a book in about a minute.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's they must have detected low speed. So now, what was the genesis, the actual genesis of the product? Because if I remember correctly, there was one specific problem or pain point in recruiting that you guys were coming out of the gate as this is our selling point. Let me see if I got it right. But go ahead.
Well, I think our main selling point was the industry we're in is called applicant tracking systems, and that was an industry that was not known to the small business. Or think about a company that's rocketing; it's growing really, really fast. They were using email and spreadsheets and so forth to manage hiring, and back then, it's kind of funny if you've seen some of the activity with Oracle acquiring Taleo, and there's a lot of activity around the HR space. But 4 years ago, it was still a sleepy, boring, nobody was really paying attention to its space. And we thought if we can get in early, or I always say we because I sounds very arrogant, but I thought if I could get in early with building a recruiting product that solved kind of the key pain points of what I call deputized hiring managers. Like, think about whenever you started your first Silicon Alley
reporter,
reporter, right? You're hiring people. You're a deputized HR person. You're not. It's not your full-time gig.
Founder is the
Exactly. So
HR
I felt like
department.
if I could give them a product where they could jump in and out for an affordable cost in terms of managing the recruiting process, and then get back to their whatever their full-time job is, I thought that would be a market that eventually would start to grow.
Yeah, and grow it has. The product is doing great, and the problem I remember at the time was when you put an ad on Craigslist, it sent you everything
in your email.
Yeah. Which is a disaster.
Yes.
You make a folder, and then you're opening it, and viruses and attachments, and all kinds of garbage.
Yeah.
But you said, put a link in your Craigslist posting and send them to a form on the web.
Yeah, and the funny thing about
changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, the funny thing about our business is, I admire companies like SendGrid, right? They're just making email deliverability a software as a service. So I think we're kind of in the same vein in terms of,
there were all these things that you can consider us pioneering for the small business, such as reading a resume in the browser in its original format. There was no recruiting software product doing that.
Right, and that's a great feature because you get to see how they design their resume.
Yeah, they're not just going to vomit whatever was in the resume from text.
Yeah, and try to translate it into a poor job, and then it reflects poorly on the candidate.
Yeah, so
you want to see the design they put into the. I kind of feel like that's a tell, like how you design. Like if people make their resume like 5 different fonts or something, it's like this person's too self-involved.
Yeah.
But if they make it just like matter of fact point, but it's like a script kind of feature, right?
Yeah, we started off with script and then we built our own over time. So.
And was that the killer feature, or was what makes people actually buy the product?
It's a pretty easy value proposition. Hey, how's it going collecting all your resumes through email?
Yeah.
Right? That was the early value proposition. It sucked. Nobody would, email is an unarmed competitor at the time. And then over time, there's some smaller companies and so forth that became competitors, and we also were pulled upstream, so we were competing with really big companies too. And I think the value proposition started to become, think about the hiring process. It's basically source, screen, interview, and hire. Us basically having the easiest to use software in terms of being able to accomplish those 4 things. It's really it's user interface above all, especially geared towards people who don't have time to learn the manual or read the manual.
Yeah, I'll tell you the piece that I love about it is, and I don't want to make it a commercial for the product, but obviously we need to talk about how to make
feel free though if you want.
Well, no, when we're talking about how to make a great product and what resonates with people, for me, the number of resumes using the Resumator went down dramatically. However, it went down because the drive-by resume shooters went away.
Yes.
Through a couple of features. One, you have to fill out the form, which is hurdle number 1.
Yep.
You don't just email and fire it off. Number 2, we would put questions that were mandatory to answer.
Yes.
That were quixotic, obvious. If you're coming in as a video editor at Mahalo or Inside.com, we would say, what are your favorite scenes and what's your favorite scene in any film, or who's your favorite director? And if you ask a question like that, it just filters against people who are not seriously applying to the position.
Yep.
And it might actually engage somebody at a deeper level. When did you add that feature, and how has that been embraced?
We added that feature probably over 2 years ago, but I love the fact that you said filtering, because I think one of the great things is you sound like an advanced user. That you can use some of those additional custom questions and so forth to be able to quickly screen through candidates. I think why people really like our product is you can come in and not know how to do all that level of customization. You can just get your jobs up, get resumes coming in, and then over time, people like the folks at Mahalo and so forth can basically say, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of features in here that we can use to be able to filter down to very particular candidates by forcing them to answer questions that I call this kind of pass or no pass questions, so to speak.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, I'm pulling up my screen like, hey, we're looking for a casting manager right now, and we see we have 181 applicants, 174 new. We just put this out. 4 are active, 3 are not hired. And over time, we can see how many were hired, et cetera. Actually, I want to be careful not to go in here and expose anybody who's. I just realized I might expose somebody who is got a job already. So, but anyway, this is really interesting because we've been using it for 4 years. We've had 16,000 applicants over that 4-year period. 4,000 a year.
How many of those did you pay Monster or Career Builder for? 0. Yeah, I think that's another thing we do is actually the secret sauce very early on was partnering with the free job boards to drive some free traffic, and now we're trying to scratch their backs as well with Indeed Simply Hired. Those folks are doing pay-per-click as well, so it's kind of a combination of the two. You get free traffic plus you can invest in pay-per-click. It's just more affordable for the most part.
And here we actually have the 41 people who were hired. That number's probably not accurate. It's probably double that number, but we probably had people not using this system properly, but at least we have something. But yeah, it's really interesting where you have people like on hold, approved, needs approval, drafting. Like you can have all of these settings as to where somebody is, and it's just made things so much easier for us. So much easier. So how many people are using the product now? What is the cost like?
So there's 6,500 businesses using us. A good number of those are actually subscribers.
Wait, how many did you say?
6,500.
Wow.
Businesses are using us.
Right.
Yeah.
So thousands of them are subscribers.
Yeah, we're in a universe of 600,000 businesses that can use our product.
And you got 1%.
Yeah. So we're.
And how do you look at that 1%? Why don't you have 6% or 10%? And how do you get there?
I think some of it is we were early in a space that we're still trying to learn what's the best customer acquisition strategy for this type of product because, there's a couple of hurdles. In a small business, there is no HR budget, so we have to basically help them kind of understand the ROI. I think another thing, too, is from a business development perspective, figuring out the right strategy for getting our goal was to basically put our product in the hands of every small and fast growing business, and sometimes that requires partnering to be able to really make that happen. So I think our business development chops are just now starting to kind of
and what does it cost?
ramp up. Anywhere between $99 a month and a few $1,000s a month.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have people paying a few $1,000s a month for this,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are like what, like Fortune 500 kind of companies? What would be the biggest company in terms of?
Biggest company? We have publicly traded companies that use us.
Right.
They could pay $4,000 a month for our service. Yeah. We just landed Al Jazeera as a customer. Yeah. So whenever
Interesting.
I think whenever
They just bought Current TV.
and I think that was their entry into the U.S. I think the other thing too, and we could talk a little bit about us having both presidential campaigns as well. Is I think what people like about our product is, it's almost kind of like if you need to launch a recruiting process, a large-scale recruiting process with
Right.
a bunch of people who don't have a lot of experience with recruiting, you can use the Resumator to do that. And that's what Al Jazeera did. They came in, they said, we got to get hiring.
Yeah, see, that's what I like about it. It's almost like you pop it up, and for $100 a month,
Yeah.
you instantly have what the Fortune 500 or 100 would have.
Yes.
I mean, you probably are not even going to use all the features of the Resumator.
Yep.
But hey, you built the company in Pittsburgh.
Yes. Which on that episode 5, you said that was one of the things we should do. Quote, get the hell out of Pittsburgh. Does that count to the swear jar?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I see that you're are you aiming to get in the swear jar? I mean, the first time.
I'm a sailor, so I'm going to try to avoid it.
Yeah. But you stayed in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
How many people do you have at the company?
35.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you must be one of the bigger startups in Pittsburgh in the tech space?
I don't know. Numbers wise, I don't know.
There aren't that many.
Yeah, there's not a lot, but I don't pay a lot of attention to that stuff.
There's not really a scene in Pittsburgh, as it were.
I beg to differ. I think
there is. Okay.
Yeah, I think that we, obviously,
I know
think
Philly's got a little bit of a scene.
Yeah, but I would say, from your optics, you're always going to see everything else as smaller. But I think for us, the way we look at it is we're building businesses in Pittsburgh that, are making an impact, nationally, at least in some cases globally. You guys have the groundswell of a ton of people, a ton of really cool companies that, quite frankly, I think a lot of us were inspired by a long time ago.
Right.
But, we have families, we have hopes and dreams for our own local areas, and we're trying to make those, something.
And what do you gain by being in Pittsburgh? And then what do you give up?
One thing what you gain is if you're able to create a little bit of noise, you're going to have an entire city rallying around you to try to help your business.
Big fish in the smaller pond.
Exactly, right. Another thing I think as well is the cost of everything is so much cheaper.
What do you pay for real estate in a place like that?
I think you guys calculate it differently here. We pay anywhere between like 14 and 20 a square foot, yeah.
Per year.
Per year, yeah.
So $1 and change a month.
Yeah.
Maybe upwards of $1.50.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Valley, yeah, but I mean here in Culver City, I think it's $2 and change. Maybe it's getting up towards $2.50.
That
So
still sounds. That's double. Yeah.
That's double. And then in the Valley, $60 a year, or it's pretty typical, $70 a year, $5 a month.
Yeah. I mean, that's cutting into a lot of money that the startup could use on hiring.
What about
people.
salaries? Salaries, I guess, because cost of living is dramatically lower, is going to be 30% less, 40% less in the Valley.
Yeah, just take the cost of living cut. The challenges are, though, to answer your question, there's not a lot of people in Pittsburgh who were at Startup X, which went public or was acquired, and they have $1 to $4 million in the bank. They're a rock star. They have a higher risk tolerance now, so they can work at another startup. often the rock stars in Pittsburgh are people who, they're really thinking about that paycheck,
Yeah, the consistency. They got a family to raise. They got bills to pay. So you get almost like a little bit more blue collar stability.
Yeah.
As opposed to the, I'm swinging for the fences type.
But I think people are willing to swing to the fences. My job is to convince those types of people to work at my company, right? I think another thing too is you have more loyalty. I think, I think out here folks will talk a lot about the opportunities and so forth, but there's a lot of problems, I think, having a company out here as well. And also, quite frankly, I think our store, we're doing pretty good from Pittsburgh,
But do you think your valuation and the amount of money you would be able to raise would be much higher?
Probably. I think that,
it would have to be because of the cost of doing business, but you do get dinged a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I think about it took us 2 years to raise our first venture round, right?
Wow.
Yeah, because we were at the beginning of this up and coming tech scene in Pittsburgh. So, everything from angels to the VC community, we weren't really on the map at all. And now some of the companies that came out of the accelerator program I was in, Alpha Lab, they raised money within 8 months, something like that. Yeah. So.
All right, when we get back, I want to talk about scaling the business and raising those rounds. And let me just take a moment to thank our friends at Snap Terms. Thank you at Snap Terms. If your website doesn't have a proper terms of service and privacy policy, obviously you do, you know what you're risking. Costly litigation. That's right. There are ambulance chasing, really just horrible, horrible law firms that are looking for any internet company to just trip up a little bit, and then they pounce with these drive-by lawsuits, and you need a simple, affordable, and fast way to protect your website, your company, and a proper terms of service and privacy policy is essential. Look what happened to Path. They had some problems with their privacy and their terms and all this kind of stuff, and they just had a big settlement and hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal bills from what I read. Just, and those are good people doing great work, and they really care. It doesn't matter if you make a tiny mistake on your privacy policy or your terms of service, your TOS. Hey, you could be screwed, and we use it here. So once again, as you know, we only have products advertised here that we actually use. Hey, the Resumator would fall in that category. You guys should become an advertiser. Hey, you just got one. thisweekend.com/legal to see our funny snapterms.com created terms of service. Go to snapterms.com and get started. Predefined packages only cost $149 and up. When you check out, use the coupon code TWIST and get a free NDA with every order. That's right, a free NDA. Who doesn't need one of those? They have custom solutions for more complex businesses. So if you think that your business is super complex and you got something new and groundbreaking you're doing, well, in my opinion is you probably don't, and you're probably overthinking that. But if you do think that, that's fine. Snapterms.com has you covered. They have custom solutions for more complex businesses. You can compare these prices to thousands to tens of thousands of dollars when you hire a law firm to your terms of service. So go ahead and visit snapterms.com. And if you are a super fan of the show and appreciate all this free content, you're a super fan, sort of.
Yeah.
How many episodes you seen? More than 10?
Yeah, I've seen more than 10. I'm an OG. I was there from the beginning.
I know.
Yeah.
Seriously old school. So if you are OG, old school, Twist, super fan, any of those, go ahead and thank at SnapTerms. On their Twitter handle, follow them. Just thank them. Even if you don't want to tweet it publicly, you could just send them a message, just a reply, and be like, "Hey, it's cool that you support This Week in Startups because I get a lot of value out of it. Thank you so much, guys." Hey, so you raised some money, an angel round, and then a $2.1 million Series B. Which actually, talking about raising money, when you hear a $2.1 million Series B in the Valley, it's like, that's an angel round.
Yeah.
I mean, the VCs who invested. Birchmere Ventures and Rincon. I've heard of Rincon Venture Partners. Are these local?
No, Rincon's out of Santa Barbara. Birchmere is out of Pittsburgh, PA. Fantastic with recruiting locally, especially. Craig is an investor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In fact, Paige is the reason that Rincon's probably invested in us. I think Paige did us a solid, and he was using the product with BetterWorks, and he said, "This is a great product. I want to introduce you to the community."
Wow.
Yeah, like everybody has Pittsburgh roots too, so that always helps. That's another benefit to being in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Everybody has a roots in some way.
So, where are you at now with the business? You raised us $2 million back in October, so that's just a couple of months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago. And what now? What are the goals?
I think
How do you put that to use?
we're looking for exponential growth. So we grow steady every single month at this point, right? So we're looking for, especially along a business development route, partnerships and so forth, to try to figure out a way to, instead of acquiring hundreds of customers, acquiring a few thousand through a deal and so forth. Because our business is, it's really about, if we can get 15,000 of those 60,000, that's an interesting business for us. That's one of the cool things about being in SaaS. I'm not going to say it's hard to go out of business if you're a SaaS business, but if you're able to gain some momentum, right, you have a good chance. And if you're able to maintain a good product and so forth, you have a good chance of being a really successful company. So I look at companies like Workday, which obviously we're able to get to a scale that we're nowhere near at. But, those are kind of, and even LinkedIn, quite frankly, although it's a different type of business model, I just kind of admire companies that
Well, it's sort of SaaS, isn't it? I mean, it's monthly subscription.
Kind of, yeah. They make a lot of money off their recruiting product. But what I admire about those companies is they're patient. In other words, I don't have this mindset that we have to, grow really, really, really fast and, quite frankly, dilute the hell out of myself.
Right.
And so forth. I look at it as I have to do what's best for my investors and my employees. And I think if everybody's happy and if the company's growing, we're going to kind of keep the formula we have right now.
You'll get where you want to go.
Yeah.
But ramping up enterprise sales seems to be the challenge of the moment. I hear this all the time.
Yeah.
How do I find a great director of sales? How do I find great salespeople? How do I keep them motivated? How do I, do it affordably? It's expensive and hard to build a sales force, is it not?
It's cheaper in Pittsburgh. But I'm going to keep saying that.
But do you find, is there some company that you could go steal all the pharmaceutical reps?
I would love to sit inside the boiler room at Box. I just think that that's a great company in terms of building out software as a service infrastructure. I really admire that company. I think one of the things we're doing is we're building out our own sales force. I think too. The customers on that higher end, a couple $1,000s. Those people want to do a demo. They want to talk to a salesperson and so forth.
They might want support.
Yeah, exactly.
At what point can you have a salesperson meeting with somebody? At what point can you have a salesperson talking to somebody on the phone? At what point do you have to say it's self-service? Do you have those numbers stratified? Like a $4,000 a year person we can have lunch with, $100 to $1,000 we could have phone calls with, under $100 a month. You really can't talk to them.
I would argue that if we have to have a face-to-face with a customer, the only reason we should be doing that is because they're marquee or local, actually, quite frankly. Because if we're meeting with companies that big, we're probably outside of our sweet spot. I think we started off really wanting to help companies with 50 or less employees, and the market's pulling us upstream because, quite frankly, most of our competitors, these older guys, it's pretty crappy software.
Right. They're going to rewrite their software, though.
Yeah.
It's an inevitability that the old legacy systems are looking. Because I saw this we were looking at, what was it? Oh, in the PR space, we were looking at Vocus, was one product, and there was another one. Anyway, we're looking at these Scion. Anyway, we were looking at these PR systems, and they were like Web 1.0 with the form boxes in the old style and weird gray backgrounds, and it was like, this software has not been updated in over a decade. And then we saw Muckrack, and we're like, oh, this PR tool is amazing, and it's like Web 2.0-y, even sort of, I don't know what we call the post-Web 2.0, but the sort of mobile aware kind of
was
design.
Was that built by any of those bigger guys, or was it a start?
No, Muckrack is just like an upstart, right?
Then that's the exact same story here. You think about even like a Taleo, and they got gobbled up by Oracle. So the number of people whose job is on the line if a change in the software affects sales is so large that our gamble is, even if they choose to go down that road, there's a lot of cannibalizing of margins. There's overhead costs that they have to somehow absorb. There's hits from layoffs if they want to become more nimble.
What do they charge? What do your competitors in the legacy space charge per month, per year?
It varies. I would say our larger competitors, those folks, they're looking for 5-figure deals.
Right.
Generally speaking, they'll also try to give you per user licensing, but in general, in the end, it's still
So $10,000 plus $500 a seat or some nonsense.
well, or sometimes they'll just say, look, we'll give it to you for $150 a user per month, right? And we're thinking, okay, you only have 2 users, we're going to let your whole company use it for that exact same cost. Because the way we look at it is, there's more people in your company who are going to help with hiring than just the people who have a user account. There's going to be,
Of course. They're basically throttling the use of their products to make a business model that is designed. The optimization there is for the business model.
Yes.
And revenue, not consumer experience.
Yes, exactly.
That's got to be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah, and there's some products, we struggle with this, but I think that we're making the right decision so far. They charge per number of employees in your company, and it's like you're being punished every single time you're successful using the product. Hey, you hired another 10 people. So,
oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, there's the value for value story there, but it's something
What is the pricing? Is it based on the number of jobs? Based on?
Yeah, we do tiers. Yeah, so it's free if you have just one open job and you just need a couple folks. So the way we kind of look at it is we have our unlimited product starts at $4.99 per month, right? But then we pull out some of the features that the larger companies need, and we'll sell an on-demand product for $99 a month. So that's just for you to have a few folks using the product and being able to get the kind of the core needs of recruiting, from posting your job to reviewing resumes. Then there's some more advanced stuff that is on our higher plan. So it's really 3 plans.
Qualifying is a big part of this, right?
Yeah.
So have you thought about, in specific verticals, building tools to filter? Because we can ask these questions.
Yes.
But questions can be looked up. Like, what if you made a copywriter test, like a copy editor?
Yep.
Like, here's just basic English language, being able to spell.
Yep.
This kind of stuff, or basic math, or basic,
Yeah,
or programming. Like, are people coming to you saying that is something they want, or they can do that with the platform?
I think. I'm not 100% sure if we're getting a lot of people asking us about that, but you make a really good point that if you're going to be dealing with deputized HR people, that also means that they're not bringing a lot of history or skills to the table in terms of how to effectively screen a copywriter and so forth. So us producing that content, I think our customer success team, that's something that we want to look at. Like we call them success bundles, where you can create evaluation templates. So like basically these are the assessments we're going to make for a copywriter, custom questions that you want to ask a copywriter
on the way
and so forth. Yeah, so you can just kind of grab it, plug it in automatically. So that's just another way of trying to help these smaller businesses jumpstart a really successful recruiting campaign.
What do you think about, since you've been meditating on jobs for 4 years, when you look at the sort of United States of America and how customers are using it, you have some unique insights into, I would suppose, where the jobs are, and who the jobs are going to and stuff like that. Is there some trend that you see in the data?
I think we'd be a little arrogant if we felt like if I tried to make some grandiose statements given our scale, but I can tell you that I do feel that the economy is getting better, most definitely. I think that some of the payroll service providers are a better barometer of the economy because there's so many blue-collar jobs, and we don't really support a nice subset of blue-collar jobs fully. Or at least rather, they can use our product, but we haven't really been targeting them. So we kind of have
so somebody's a small restaurant or cafe, they're not necessarily going to use the Resumator.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, but...
Yeah, they most certainly can. We kind of have a white-collar view of the pulse of the industry. And I mean, I would say in general, because we're 25% tech companies and so forth, I think, we're a little bit skewed in terms of really being able to put our pulse on the economy. So I'd be making it up if I tried to give you some stats other than, our companies on average are paying us more money after a year than so that gives us a sense that, they're doing more hiring. So
it feels like there's more hiring, feels like less. So it feels like there's still problems around qualified candidates and the match between education and skills.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges I think that I'm seeing with a lot of, or at least some of the customers that are using our software, is how do you quickly separate the wheat from the chaff? Because I think, we have some customers who they're used to getting 1 or 2 resumes a day, and then suddenly they're getting 10 a day, right? So ramping those folks up to understand how to use our screening tools. So those are some of the challenges we have, but that's a good problem for them, Would you much rather look at 10 candidates or 100 candidates before you made a hiring decision? And I think that, there's a lot of systems out there that are really expensive where people will say, we're going to automatically filter down those 100 candidates to the top 10, but they're not that good. No, and nobody really wants to admit that, but they're just going to base it on.
What is the best way to tell if somebody's the right person for the job, do you think?
Interview them face to face. Like we always tell everybody, we're helping facilitate the process of recruiting, but in the end, I think maybe another way to say it is hiring is always your gut. Right. It always is. But how informed is your gut? Mm-hmm. That's really what the challenge is. Right. And Resumator is a way of super informing your gut. Right. I think if you're just using the resume and you haven't done anything else, you're not collaborating with other people, your gut's not that well informed. Yeah. So I think that, anything you do when it comes to hiring a person, you're not going to be able to do it scientifically.
How did you come to entrepreneurship? Was this your first company, or you have multiple companies before that?
It's not my first incorporation.
Right. So you've had other failed startups or projects.
Yeah. I think, I was a designer for 10 years. I was designing websites, and then you learn
to build. A web shop or just freelance?
Web shop. No, web shop. I did freelance too, but wow, that was a lot of money. Freelance. But anyway.
Yeah. It was lucrative for a period there. So this was during the Web 1.0, 2.0 phase?
I'd say go back 4 years, and then the 10 years before that. That was kind of my career from 99 on, pretty much. Mm-hmm. When I saw that, there's a couple things. I think I saw that I could design. I was a good user experience guy. I could design interfaces. I could also design, or I could build the back end of websites. I could do the front-end development as well. I thought that's a pretty good mix for being a web entrepreneur, except I didn't know anything about the VC, angel, startup world. I just started digesting, this is going to sound like I'm kissing your butt, but I started digesting the TechCrunch 40 videos. I was just watching other people who, funny thing is, I'm 35. They were younger than me, but I was watching them, seeing, okay, how does this, kind of world work? And I just started using cues from that to kind of educate myself on how to present myself as a tech entrepreneur. Right. Faking it until you start making it.
Right. So you just looked at, that's the amazing thing about the web today is just, whether it's YouTube or Quora or people's blogs, it's just all the information is out there now. Yeah. It's so democratized. Yeah. Do you feel like you got treated differently because you're African American?
No, the funny thing is,
I wrote a little bit about that recently. I don't know if you saw my pieces or the brouhaha subsequent.
People always ask me that question, but my mom.
And if you don't feel like answering the question, you just tell me like.
No, I will
answer that question.
No,
but I think it's kind of an important discussion.
No, I will, because I think people don't talk about this kind of stuff enough. My mom a long time ago said to me, the best thing you can do is to put your best foot forward and be spectacular at whatever you do. Right. So that if somebody wants to not work with you because of your skin tone, you didn't want to work with that person anyways. Right. Right. So the way I look at it is, what I love about kind of the tech industry is numbers don't lie, right? The fact of the matter is that if you're able to produce results, people will invest in you. And I always try to tell people, Page never met me in person, and he invested in me. Right. Right. Christopher Muhlenkauf out of Germany invested in me, never met me. And John Frankel invested in me, never met me face to face.
But they did use the product. They did see.
Page did. The other two just went off of numbers.
So they just looked at the revenue. They looked at the membership, the paid users. And so you were judged on your merit by investors.
Yeah. Now, so in other words, I think, but one thing I will say is I do fundamentally believe that, and because I talk a lot about things around hiring too, and I'll give you one quick story there in a second, is I don't forget that it could be somewhat harder. Right. But I don't think that it's malicious. I think it's, when I realize I don't pattern match, there's a white kid out there who didn't go to Stanford, and that's his hurdle, right? Right. My hurdle is
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, it's Pittsburgh.
It's
but-
Pittsburgh more than being a black guy, I think, right? I mean, don't you think people discriminate against entrepreneurs in Pittsburgh?
Well, yeah, but
or second-tier cities?
But I would say it's not like I'd say 9.9 times out of 10, it's my merit. But I'm not going to deny there's a 0.1% of the population that, just for whatever reason, just
did you
doesn't think I have it in me.
tech? Like, you think you've experienced
Overtly, no. I don't think I've ever.
You wouldn't be able to say, like, I get a sense that maybe in this meeting there was a little race involved.
No, I have to admit I've never ever felt like that was really the case. But
I'm glad to hear that because see, when I wrote my piece, that was what I was sort of alluding to is that angel and I did a bad job writing those pieces or just talking about race. Which is incredible that two guys can't talk about race or anybody can't talk about race with everybody getting so personal that in the personal attacks, like people were like, well, just because you have an Asian wife doesn't mean that you're not a racist. And I'm like, well, wait a second, I wasn't a racist before I married my Korean wife.
There's a simple reason for that though. I think every black person has plenty of experiences where somebody did do something to them because of their race, and every white person has somebody who called them racist when they knew they weren't being. So there's this huge level of sensitivity there.
That's insightful, dude.
Yeah, that
So people come in charge to the argument. It's like I have to start my argument by saying I'm not a racist.
Yeah.
And sadly, like in America today, there's still a lot of racists.
Yeah, I mean, but
people still experience racism.
But I mean, we don't want to go too far down this path. But I always tell the story of if let's say if you're a middle-aged white guy and you're interviewing a young white guy for a job. He reminds you of his son, of your caddy, of your neighbor's kid, your nephew, whatever. So you guys live in the same neighborhood. So you can build rapport on more things. Because hiring is really much about rapport. Right. But if you're that older white guy and you have a young sister in front of you, now it's just qualifications because you have nothing in common.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's a common challenge, I think, with people being able to connect to each other when it comes to, because I think hiring is especially in smaller businesses. We talk about like in big corporations, there's so many other reasons that they're just like hire. But in smaller businesses, you got to figure out the right way to build bridges. I would say, if anything, I dealt with it more as a designer, like Don Charlton and the way my voice sounds if I was on a conference call, whatever. I'd walk into meetings, I called it the 100-yard stare. It wasn't malicious. They just didn't expect to see me.
Yeah, like Don Charlton. Did we go to Yale together? I think I saw you at the Harvard Club.
Mr.
Charlton.
And they would say, hey.
Don? Oh, you're black. So you could actually feel that, like, the moment when they realized you weren't white.
Yeah, but I would say, though, I mean, fundamentally...
My daughter has that now because she has such a Greek name that they're going to be like, Galaganis, and then they're going to see this little Korean girl walk in and be like, what is that? What is the disjoint there?
Yeah, but I would say fundamentally, though, I think if there's any industry where you can be successful based on your merits, I think it's definitely the tech community. I would say, though, that you can find this video. There was a very famous venture capitalist who was talking about the Google guys, and he mentioned that they were all the things that he liked, and he said that they were Stanford, geeky, and he did say white. And, obviously my whole world didn't implode.
Whoa, but that is crazy.
But I just kind of said, well, that means I'm never going to raise money for him.
Well, and if one guy said it, 10 guys thought it. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, if one person... So that definitely... I find that the white guys now are kind of out of favor. I'm not saying black guys are in favor, but I will tell you who is in favor. I have had many angel investors or VCs tell me in private, they would never say it on the show, that they pattern match for people who have immigrant parents. Well, a lot of us came to this country, like our families, with multiple generations ago. Like, who's coming into the country now? A lot of Indian, a lot of Asians. They're like, oh, are you second or third generation or first generation? If it's first generation, it's like, oh, your parents suffered to get you here. We want you because you know how to work.
So I think in some ways I would say that if you were hearing that, then I would say there's other conversations going on too, which is unfortunate. But my advice to people: keep on moving. Right? Yeah. Like I just don't have time to kind of deal with all that stuff. And I think the main thing for me is I'd like to be able to give a big middle finger to anybody who thought that I couldn't be successful.
That's what I did. I was like, I grew up in Brooklyn. Nobody thought I could do it. So that's the other thing is that when I wrote that piece, I was probably a little bit naive because my experience is that I overcame a lot of struggle.
Yeah.
And then people don't know my struggle, so they're just like, well, you didn't struggle. And like this one woman on Twitter who doesn't even know me is like, you say we live in a post-race world. And I'm like, I never said that. I said we're moving to a post-race world.
Yeah,
right? Like,
the younger generations wonder what the hell we're arguing about.
Exactly.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
The young
they do.
people are like,
They really do.
well, a lot of them are mixed race.
Yeah, but I always tell people too that.
I mean, how could you be racist if you're mixed race? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, well, maybe to kind of wrap up
Yeah.
this part, I always tell people that there are still some people alive who lived in a society where there was a colored water fountain.
Yeah.
They're probably a little bitter about it. I'd say
Yeah,
we have,
rightfully so,
we have
yeah.
2 or 3 generations, and I think we're probably going to be in a much better position.
I hope we move to that world where people can talk about it. And that's what I appreciate you talking about on the show, because some of these issues, like also women in tech, like Gina from
I've heard some
Mighty
pretty,
Bell.
I've heard some pretty.
I think they have it the worst.
Yeah, I've heard some pretty like the word babe and things like that. I've
Or
heard that
like
a lot,
I was
yeah.
talking to one founder, and she's like, everybody wants. I wouldn't say who, but pretty high profile female founder. I mean, very high profile now. At the time was medium profile. She wasn't in the top slot. But like people want to go. They ask her on meetings. So she thinks that they want to talk about her product.
Yes.
And then when she agrees to the meeting, like, okay, let's meet for dinner here.
Yes.
And she's like, whoa, dinner?
Yes.
No, come by my office for 20 minutes. Like, yeah, I'm really busy. Like, and it's like, well, wait, you're an investor, and you're too busy to meet at your office?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing at your office all day? Like, under what circumstance is a woman meeting with a venture capitalist? And there's obviously founder to venture capitalist. The venture capitalist has the money. The founder wants it. Like, you're really going to force me to go to a dinner with you?
Yeah.
Where you're going to try to make it romantic? And
I've heard those stories multiple times.
that's effed up. See, these women, what they should do is they should just have like an anonymous, like funded message board. Like, this guy's a dog.
The funded, like a version of
like
the
a version of
funded?
Adeos, the funded. You know what the funny story about the funded is? So Adeo does the funded. He tells me he's doing it. And then he says, like, this big thing, he says on the site, I'm going to reveal who it is. I'm going to reveal my identity on this date.
I remember the article.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, will you start telling people that it's your site? Or sort of telling them so people think that it's you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, absolutely. So then I started emailing it to people like, hey, this is an interesting site. So I emailed it to like 10 journalists. Have you seen this site? It's really interesting. I don't know who's doing it. And of course, then they all start thinking like, oh, well, I have the inside line that Jason is the one. But that would be great. And actually turned out the guy from Kleiner Perkins was macking on, he was macking on a coworker, which is always insane. It's nuts. So what's been the hardest part? I mean, in all honesty, like it feels like this has been like, I wouldn't say it's a rocket ship. It feels like this is like a 747 just took off and you're just cruising.
The hardest part's just trying to, I would say a rocket is a good analogy. Like, we're kind of a 747. It's not going to break through the atmosphere, right? So we're trying to figure out while we're on the 747, how do we assemble rockets and so forth, and then actually kind of,
Oh, you want to put the turbo boost on?
Oh yeah, we want a nice chunk of those 600,000 businesses. Yeah.
Have you thought about ways to make it consumer driven in that, like, I could apply and my resume is on the Resumator and you can interact with me there in some kind of way, and I've proven my skills there in some kind of way? Like, there are some people doing that. I mean, that's LinkedIn, I guess. Like, here's my profile. Have you thought about a demand side? Like, I'm looking for a job in this, and I'm a qualified candidate? Or is it too different than your business?
We're just not big enough to be able to have that level of diversification, right? We really need to focus on building the very best recruiting software product, period. I think we're interested in the entire employee life cycle, from hiring to retiring. I think we're probably more focused on that. I think you got to make a conscious decision to serve job seekers or employers, in my opinion. And I think, LinkedIn, I think, is probably an exception because they're obviously doing a marvelous job at it. But that being said, they make a lot of money on recruiting.
It took them time to get there too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the pro feed. It's the people who are recruiters paying $5,000 a seat.
Yeah.
Is it per year or per month?
I don't know, but
It's per year.
But you saw their earnings, right? Like, what's interesting about
They're
LinkedIn,
crushing it.
A quiet company that is just saying, look, we're not Facebook, we're not real sexy, but we're hitting numbers, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to. I mean, it's pretty clear that unless Yahoo has, some big churn of events ahead,
Yeah.
LinkedIn will surpass them in market cap. And that's kind of interesting. And then the second thing after that is, well, if LinkedIn's worth $20 billion and Facebook's worth $70 billion, that's, that's 3.5 times. But if Facebook stumbles and goes back down to $50 billion or $40 billion valuation and LinkedIn is a juggernaut, it could actually come close.
Yeah, I think, and Yahoo's earnings, I think, were up too, right? This last quarter. I think
that they've, they have to do a big purge, I think, in order to, they'd have to lay off a lot of redundant people.
What's interesting is a company like, a much smarter person's going to be able to figure this out or be able to kind of slap this down. But, Yahoo used to be the Facebook, right? It used to be Facebook, right? So what's going to prevent Facebook from becoming a Yahoo 10 years from now?
Oh, I think it's starting to happen.
15 years from now.
I was in the club last night, and everybody had their phones out because Snoop Dogg was playing, and it was all Instagram.
Instagram?
Which obviously is Facebook,
yeah.
right? But it was Instagram, and it just shows how quick. They did a brilliant move by buying that, but there'll be another one of those that comes up, and people are just like, yeah, I'm off Instagram now. I'm off Facebook. Just like they left Facebook for Instagram, they'll leave Instagram for Snapchat or Snapchat for whatever. It's
unfortunate that Instagram is created and they get acquired, and then a bunch of other people are trying to do something with photographs, and I don't know. I just think chasing these different kind of avenues is, if you'll get a quick $10 million flip because there's another competitor of Facebook that needs something, then great. But people... There's
a lot of photo sharing going on, and really... actually, the only thing what did you think of Vine?
I'm a laggard when it comes to a lot of these things. So,
Vine was interesting. I think it's like fun and simple, and people are starting to use it.
Okay.
Just short 6-second videos. It makes sense. Well, listen, it's been great to have you full circle on the program from a call in.
Yep.
And how many people were at the company then?
Just me.
Was it a company of one?
It was me, yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize it was a company. Did you have customers at that time, or you just had the idea?
Yeah, we had our first customer 1 month after. I probably had 3 customers whenever I called you.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
What a great story, man. I got to tell you.
Fake it, make it. Right?
Fake it till you make it.
Well, we're not making it.
Or make it happen.
Doing it. We're doing it right now.
You're doing the work. Listen, it's hard. What do you think of the sort of founder stress, suicide issue that has been talked about a lot? Have you felt like a ton of stress at times where this just felt like it wasn't worth it?
The story,
how do you manage it?
The time when it wasn't worth it for me was whenever we were 3 people, and I always tell people, people always ask me, give me some advice, and I always say, don't do the exact opposite of almost everything I did. Like start a company by yourself. I'll never forget us sitting there. We had sales calls to do. We had, we had to monitor the site. It was me and 2 interns. And we needed a phone system. So I'm in there hooking up phone lines, and the internet went down. And I remember calling Verizon, and Verizon not getting back to me. And I remember I was a grown man. I started crying, sitting on the floor. And you just think, what did I get myself into?
What is life about? What am I doing here?
But I think...
Yo, we've all had that moment, absolutely. But I saw my dad have that moment when I was like a teenager. It's like when a grown man just hits the wall.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa.
But I think, and I talk about this a lot, I think the main thing is you got to suck it up. Like what you're trying to do something that, most people, they'll get up, they'll make their cheese sandwich, they'll go to work, someone else is figuring out all these other things.
Yeah.
Pay me on time. We're not doing that.
The bell goes off, you go home.
Yeah, so
bell goes on.
So don't feel sorry, because I always think about the person in my ear yelling, quit, go back and get another job,
Right. That's the thing is, something happened with Jody, talking about the Ecomom founder killed himself tragically.
Yeah.
And I think we should keep talking about Jody, because I think the more we talk about it, and the more it was actually Sarah did a fantastic piece on, hey, it turns out that there was something wrong with the business, and it looks like, obviously we don't know because he didn't leave a note, or if he did, we haven't heard about it yet. He didn't say, I'm killing myself because the business failed.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have a literal connection there, but the painting is starting to become clear that the business was going to go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so vested in it, I don't think he could see any way out.
Yeah.
Which, to me, Jody was such a force for good, so loved by so many people. If Ecomom cratered, which apparently was going to do, he could wake up the next day, go to 100, go to 20 VC firms and be an entrepreneur in residence at 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
Get a salary, and then just go hang out in the conference room and meet with other entrepreneurs and talk about his failure and just enjoy it. He'd be with us today. He could be back he'd be on this goddamn program right now. This thing that kind of pisses me off about it is he could be on this program right now talking about the failure, and everybody could learn from it and move on.
It's definitely, I've had a friend who killed themselves before, and it's definitely not, it's something else usually.
It's gotta be like.
There's catalysts for it, but
a tipping point, but there's some underlying, see, that's what we've heard is that there's an underlying depression issue or something. So and then people are saying like you screen people for mental illness or depression going into entrepreneurship, and I'm like, not to be cavalier, but I don't think you need to screen it. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you're not mentally stable by definition. Like, who goes in? I mean, what person, as I said at the top of the program, what person goes into the arena knowing that 80% chance of failure? You've got to be.
I think people are just trying to find they're trying to rationalize and prevent things that are part of life. Kind of, it's
that's
sad.
Wise. That's wise. I think that's really wise because, as somebody told me. Mark Pesci actually said this to me. The reason why you're taking it bad, and other people are taking it bad, is because, and he said, taking it bad, is because you look at suicide, as this event, and actually it's a disease.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had that disease the whole time.
Yes.
And now the disease has killed them.
Yes.
They had the suicide disease, or whatever, the depression disease that led to suicide. But they had suicide, just like somebody might have cancer. And they had a life, and their life ended prematurely because of their disease. Yeah,
the people who've experienced someone that they know kill themselves realize that it's a disease, because it's so easy to look back and to say, sometimes you feel like you're in a situation where you're actually keeping someone alive, by being in their life and so forth.
Yeah, right? That's interesting you say that. I mean, I think maybe Jody falls into that character, that camp, because he was so full of life, but yet there seemed to be like something missing in his life, or whatever. Like he needed to have that success.
Yeah, the human body is so complex. I think sometimes we try to oversimplify it, right? Like this little 2-pound thing in our head.
There's a lot of chemicals going around in there, and if they're tweaked
a little bit
off,
it
could be crazy.
I think I read somewhere like if you dropped a 1 drop of iodine on the brain, I forgot what it said it would do. Just a little drop of iodine or something. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, like. Your brain will just go crazy.
Yeah, like that's how sensitive the brain is.
Yeah, we did it to soldiers in like the 50s and 60s. We put LSD in them and tried to have them go fight wars or simulations and stuff.
I wasn't born.
Neither was I, but man, there's like videos on YouTube of like this craziness, and you're like, we did that to our own soldiers? That was madness. Listen, this has been a great episode. I really do love the product. So if you haven't tried it, I really encourage you, as a fan of the show, to just put one job in there. It's free. Go to theresumator.com. And, there's no bigger endorsement, I can tell you, than there's 3 people upstairs at our company right now with the Resumator open a window. Literally, we have 7 or 8 job recs open because Mahala's doing so well. I don't talk about it. Soon we'll have Inside, the new product coming. But it's going so well that we're literally hiring 7, 8 people, and they love using the product. So go ahead and go to theresumator.com, use the promo code TWiST, and you'll get 10 years for free. Is that what we agreed?
10 years.
There is no promo code. Just go. It's free. Like MailChimp, it's free. Right? Free for a month.
Free to try, yep.
Free to try. So go try it, and it's so cheap and I shouldn't say cheap, but it is kind of cheap. The lowest price is $99 a month. That's cheap, dude.
Scale.
I know. People always tell me that, and I think it's right. Is that like, you think it should be $49 or $149? Or?
We were $49 before. We moved up to $99.
And did it change anything, or did it make more people sign up?
We're 1 month into that now.
I bet you more people buy it now.
Well, yeah.
There's no difference between $49 and $99.
That's a classic story, right? I remember I would have never bought. I mean, we have subscriptions that are $850 a month, and I remember when I started out, no way, right?
Right. Then you're like, wait a second, $850 a month, or I could hire 2 people to do it.
Yeah.
Or I could put a developer on this for 4 months, and it will cost, whatever that is, $30,000, and
I think it's the value of both the subscription fee, but also the fact that if you get that many thousands of customers, that's a pretty big marketing channel too, for other services.
Don Charlton, a pleasure having you on the program again. thanks for making it back 325 episodes later. And it's a real pleasure to have you on. And thanks for the honesty and the discussions about race and gender and suicide and stress and all these really important issues that I think people are afraid to talk about. But I'm not afraid to talk about them. Although I have to say I'm kind of like punched. I feel like so beat up after talking about race that I know people said, like, don't talk about race. It's just not a good idea for a white guy to talk about race. I'm like, you know what? I kind of understand it now. Like, it's exhausting to be called a racist. I'm certain it's not as exhausting as having racism thrown at you. Like, I've never had any racism ever. Quite the opposite. As a white guy, I can tell you that. Like, literally, this is the experience of a white guy.
Well,
you want me to tell you the experience of a white guy?
Sure.
Every person you meet, like every other white guy, is like, not every other white guy, but most other guys you meet are just like, how can I, especially when you're younger, how can I help you get more success in your career? Like, literally, there's it's like everybody wants to help you become.
I don't think every white guy has that story. I grew up with a lot of white guys that were.
I'm telling you, that was mine, man. I met so many potential like mentors and people who just wanted to support me. Maybe it was my energy or something, but.
Well, I think the big thing people should realize, it's not race, it's class. That's what it really is. It's really class. It's really
interesting.
Yeah, like it's really where you are in society. If you're a black kid, you grew up in the suburbs, you do pretty well.
It's true. And it's interesting too. A lot of people were like, hey, this term minority is kind of over. Like, the minorities are, the demographic shift is just pretty clear. Like, the white people are going to be whatever, the minority. And the Republicans lost the election specifically because they hate the latest group of immigrants that come to this country, the Mexicans.
Well, I don't know if I'd say that.
I think they outright hate them.
I don't know. I don't think they'd hate them.
I think it feels kind of like hate to me when like everybody else who came to the country gets to have a path. The Irish, the Greeks, Swedish, the German, everybody got a chance to become legit citizens after sneaking into the country, except the Mexicans. We're going to stop it there for 10 million Mexicans. We've got a country of 320 million people.
You're right, but
3% of the country, and they're working hard.
But I think there's a lot of people. Just to, quite honestly, if I understood what conservative meant, I'd probably be Republican.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. But I don't know what conservative means.
This is like a weird conservative, and they're changing it now.
I'm fiscally conservative. Very.
Most intelligent people are.
Yeah, well, but
it's don't spend more than we make.
Yeah, but my point is, though, that I think, that's a huge group of people that I think there's a lot of people in there that they just basically...
They've been hijacked, I think, the Republicans. They've been hijacked.
I try to stay out of all that. But
I stay out of it, too, but, sometimes it keeps coming up on the show, and I think, what the other thing is? I think the Republicans lost the election, and they have now that they've lost twice, and they lost 8 years. It was like Sarah Palin was a disaster. They just intellectual lightweight, just a stupid person.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
It was just like this person doesn't even know like what the countries in Europe are. Europe's not a country. It's just like this person hasn't been to any of these countries, and now that they've lost because of the immigration issue, and they've just lost the total Hispanic or Mexican vote, or Mexican vote. I think they're going to have to change it this time around. I think they're going to change their stance on immigration completely. 180, boom.
Yeah.
Well, this has been This Week in Politics with Jason Calcanis, who doesn't really have deep knowledge of it. Again, check out theresumator.com and follow Dontrepreneur. What a great Twitter handle. Holy cow.
And just to wrap up, that was one of the things you said, build your own brand. And
no doubt.
Yeah, it's gold. I'll admit that too.
I have to say, this is a great episode. This is a great episode for me because when you put something out in the world, sometimes you don't know if you're having an impact. You have that experience sometimes? You put your product out there. Then when you, in a way, I'm your customer for Resumator. You're my customer for This Week in Startups.
Yeah.
Which is somebody who's not in the Valley, who's not in the game, listens to the show and gets a bunch of skills or insights or inspiration or any of those things, and they level up and they get in the game. That's why I do it. And so it's so great to hear these stories.
And even though I wish I could, I would tell you this privately too, but I will say that the TechCrunch 40 experience and the feedback that you would give people when they were pitching, and you specifically, those were I was cutting my teeth being an entrepreneur, or learning how to become an entrepreneur on the content that you and Mike and were producing. Because I think before you guys, you couldn't pull up 50 videos of entrepreneurs pitching their ideas and then getting feedback on what venture capitalists would think. You didn't really...
Didn't exist.
Yeah.
That's right.
The site was so slow, but I was digesting all those videos back in the day.
That's so awesome to hear. Hey, Mike and I had a good 3-year run. We did some good work together. But now he's blocking me on Twitter. It's literally blocking me on Twitter. It's pretty funny. Weird guy. Hey, listen, we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups.